This is the 1979 SEC Football Preview. Brought to you by General Motors Parts Division, who'd like to remind you to keep that great GM feeling with genuine GM parts. The 1979 SEC Football Preview features the Crimson Tide of Alabama, coached by Bear Bryant. The Bulldogs of Georgia, coached by Vince Dooley. The War Eagle of Auburn, coached by Doug Barfield. The Tigers of LSU, coached by Charlie McClendon. The Volunteers of Tennessee, coached by Johnny Majors. The Gators of Florida, coached by Charlie Pell. The Wildcats of Kentucky, coached by Fran Kersey. The Rebels of Ole Miss, coached by Steve Sloan. The Bulldogs of Mississippi State, coached by Emory Bellard. And the Commodores of Vanderbilt, coached by George McIntyre. Hi, I'm Bill Fleming. Once again, it's my pleasure to be your host as we take a look at what's ahead in the Southeastern Conference football race in 1979. It seems that each one of the schools has a number of outstanding players returning. To be sure, a number have been graduated, and we'd like to pay special tribute to those seniors who were named to the consensus All-SEC team in 1978. From Alabama, Marty Lyons, defensive tackle. Barry Krause, linebacker. Murray Legg, defensive back. From Auburn, Mike Burrow, offensive tackle. From Florida, the place-kicking specialist, Burge Yepremian. From Georgia, Willie McClendon, running back. Ricky McBride, linebacker. From Kentucky, Dan Fowler, offensive guard, and Jim Kovach, linebacker. From LSU, Charles Alexander, running back. Robert Dugas, offensive tackle. From Mississippi State, quarterback Dave Marlin. From Ole Miss, Charlie Cage, defensive tackle. And from Tennessee, Robert Shaw, center. And the man named most valuable player by the majority of the SEC coaches, Willie McClendon of Georgia. Willie really didn't blossom until his senior year. Up until that time, he'd been used primarily as a blocking back. But in 1978, the 6'2", 200-pounder had a brilliant season, rushing for more than 1,300 yards and smashing the Bulldogs' single-season rushing record belonging to the great Frank Sinkwich, a record that had stood for 38 years. And so, Willie McClendon achieved true greatness in his senior year. In just a moment then, we'll be back to take a look at the returning stars, the men of 79, after this word from General Motors Parts Division.
Mr. Goodwrench. There's a clunking noise in the back, and no one has been able to find it.
Well, I'll take a look.
Oh, good.
Mr. Goodwrench really understands your General Motors car, and dealer service bulletins from GM help him spot problems fast.
Find it?
Sure did. Found it right here in this new GM service bulletin.
Keep that great GM feeling
With Mr. Goodwrench.
and genuine GM parts.
He's at over 6,000 participating GM dealers.
All right, come on, closer. Jim, you're too stiff. Cut. That's a wrap.
A lot of people depend on me for a smooth ride. So believe me, when my truck needs work, no amateur touches it. I take it to a pro, Mr. Goodwrench.
Mr. Goodwrench, everything okay?
Nothing serious, just a new set of genuine GM shocks.
Oh, great.
Keep that great GM feeling with genuine GM parts.
At over 6,000 participating GM dealers.
When you talk about runners in the SEC, you'll find two of the best at Auburn. Number 20, Joe Cribbs, who won the SEC rushing championship a year ago, averaging 120 yards a game. He shattered the Auburn single-game rushing record with 250 yards against the Georgia Bulldogs. In all, he scored 16 touchdowns rushing, one of the highest totals in the country. And just when Auburn has softened the defense inside, with Joe Cribbs, they have another man to shake loose. Number 21, James Brooks, who can break a game wide open with his explosive broken field heroics. Last season, Brooks led the nation in rushing after the first 3 games. But the following week, he broke his foot and never carried the ball again the rest of the year. But 79 is a new season, and the doctors say he's fully recovered. At Vanderbilt, number 35, Frank Mordecai, has a distinctive running style all his own, a quick hitter. He can accelerate in a split second, then shift gears, and practically come to a screeching halt if he has to, long enough to pick up a few blockers and turn it on one more time. Mordecai was named Back of the Week after exploding for 321 yards against Air Force. No runner in SEC history has ever had that kind of a day. On this 79-yard touchdown run against mighty Alabama, he left everybody in his wake. Mississippi State returns every one of their starting running backs of a year ago. Number 22, James Jones, may lead the Bulldogs in rushing once again. He, Len Copeland, and Fred Collins were all starters in '78, and they'll certainly be key people for new coach Emory Bellard, who has worked some of his famous wishbone offense into the Bulldogs' attack for '79. At Mississippi, John Forcade was a nifty runner as a quarterback during his freshman year. With his talents and those of a seasoned veteran like number 20, Leon Perry, the Rebels will cause some trouble in '79. To strengthen his team, Coach Steve Sloan has moved two of his fastest runners to new positions. Number 36, Fast Freddie Williams, is now a flanker and a game breaker. And number 29, Malvin Gibson, has become a defensive back. These changes came about because of so much highly regarded talent on the way up at Ole Miss. Running backs like Reg Woolard and redshirt freshman Melvin Brown, a man with blinding speed. And speed is what the Rebs have plenty of. The greatest plus at LSU this year is having a pair of experienced runners at quarterback. Number 8, David Woodley, a gifted player who has a knack for getting into the end zone. And number 5, Steve Ensminger, making this nice run. But the Tigers' ground game has some big shoes to fill without their great All-America running back, Charles Alexander. His replacement at tailback is a powerful runner, number 47, Hokie Gaijan, who will trample anybody who gets in his way. At Georgia, there's strength up the middle, starting with quarterback Jeff Fiburn, who likes to run the bootleg. At 6'1", 205 pounds, he's a hard-nosed quarterback who likes to mix it up with defenders, particularly close to the end zone. The Bulldogs have a pair of thumpers at fullback, number 33, Ronnie Stewart, and Jimmy Womack. They were an effective 1-2 punch last year, and in '79, they'll both run behind 250-pound Ray Donaldson, hailed by Coach Vince Dooley as the best center he's ever had at Georgia. And say, don't confuse Ron Stewart of Georgia with Rod Stewart of Kentucky. He wears number 32. He's a high-stepping fullback who averaged more than 4.5 yards a carry last year. Watch this next play. You'll swear that Stewart has been totally stopped. Wrong. His powerful legs keep him going. Somehow he breaks out, bursts into the open, and scores a Kentucky touchdown. Now that's determination. At Florida, you'll find another outstanding running quarterback, a number 12, John Brantley. Here's perfect execution, resulting in a touchdown for the Gators. Florida's top rushing returnee is number 33, Cal Davis, a first-rate tailback, one who will lower his shoulder for a few more yards. As a freshman a year ago, he demonstrated his running skills by leading the Gators in rushing. Look for him to be even better in '79. Quarterback Jimmy Streeter of Tennessee makes no secret about the fact that he really loves to run the football. Last year, he led the Volunteers in rushing, twisting and turning for nearly 600 yards en route to setting a Tennessee record in total offense. And if you had a Simpson in the backfield like Tennessee, you'd use him too. Fullback Hubert Simpson, who averaged 5 yards a carry. In fact, he even wears O.J.'s old number. And sophomore tailback James Berry, number 39, is the kind of a guy who will gladly give you the shirt right off his back, if you'll let him score. The high-powered wishbone offense at Alabama will revolve around quarterback Stedman Shealy. He himself is a splendid runner when his troublesome knee isn't giving him a problem. But there's no question about the Alabama running backs. One of the toughest runners in the country is in that Alabama backfield, number 42, Major Ogilvie. Coach Bear Bryant has given the opinion that Ogilvie has the best balance of any runner he's ever coached. And then there's tackle-busting Billy Jackson, a junior from Phoenix City, Alabama. He came to the Tide with a lot of raw talent, as you can see. He developed it, and what better place to learn than in Bear's Wishbone, where everybody carries the football. As it turned out, the Tide had 6 200-yard runners last year, including their fullback, Steve Whitman, who wears number 45. And again this year, he and the other Alabama runners will get help from a superb offensive line, featuring Dwight Stevenson, Jim Bunch, and Mike Brock. Runners are fun to watch, and so are the men who throw and catch the football, as we'll see. There's nothing a thrower likes better than a big target, and one of the biggest in the country is number 88, Marty McDole of Mississippi State. McDole led all SEC receivers with 48 catches. Here he's on the receiving end of a halfback pass from number 22, James Jones. Jones also doubles as a receiver. Jones catches this one from Dave Marler, who has graduated, but his replacement, Dwayne Brown, is a junior with some experience, and he certainly knows what James Jones can do with the ball. At Kentucky, the top returning receiver is number 8, split end Felix Wilson. Last year, he averaged almost 17 yards on 43 catches. The Wildcats will be going at quarterback this year with senior Mike Shutt, number 9. He's actually played very little during his Kentucky career. Last year, he appeared in only 3 games. His best performance came against Vanderbilt. He hit this big pass to number 22, Chris Hill, for a touchdown. His performance that day earned him the Most Valuable Player of the Game award on homecoming day. At Florida, quarterback John Brantley, number 12, and flanker Chris Collinsworth, number 21, form a deadly combination. Watch this one, as Brantley aims it for the pylon at the corner of the end zone. Touchdown, Gators! Again, that big play combination of Brantley and Collinsworth. A year ago, Collinsworth was practically unstoppable. He averaged 19 yards a catch and an amazing 26 yards on kickoff returns. Quite a weapon to have in your lineup. Then at Georgia, there's quarterback Jeff Pyburn, whose haircut in one game last year resembled a Marine Corps drill sergeant. One of Pyburn's sure-handed receivers this fall, flanker Amp Arnold, number 82, a tough man to catch in the open field. To go with Arnold, the Bulldogs return the 1978 SEC Rookie of the Year, number 24, Lindsey Scott, whose spectacular mid-air catches are a delight to watch. Georgia's also fortunate to have a solid backup quarterback at number 8, Buck Bellew. Even when caught off balance, he's able to get the ball away, and that's poise. Last year, Bellew was a freshman. As always, the Bulldogs will be a sound team under Coach Vince Dooley. He's been at Georgia 15 years, and 11 of his teams have played in bowl games. Vanderbilt quarterback Van Heflin takes a lot of ribbing about his Hollywood name. He admits he's no actor. The one thing he can do is throw the football. Here he drills one to his junior split end, Charles Edwards. Right on target. A 39-yard touchdown strike against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Because that was such a beautifully executed play, we're sure that new Commodore coach George McIntyre wouldn't mind watching it again from our low camera. A coach's dream. So with players like Heflin and Edwards, Frank Mordecai and Preston Brown, enemy defenders better be on the alert for the Commodores this fall. At Alabama, Stedman Shealy can make life miserable for a defense when he and split end Keith Pugh go to work on the short passing game, as you'll see. Now, just how do you stop this? You can't. And just about the time that Alabama lulls you into that short passing game, Pugh will change his cut and go deep to make a sensational fingertip catch. Last year, Pugh caught only 20 passes, but he averaged more than 22 yards a catch. The Crimson Tide returned another fine receiver in tight end Bart Kraut, number 87. Before he was injured last year, Kraut caught this 41-yarder for a touchdown against the Southern California Trojans. Look for LSU to throw more in 79 with a combination of quarterback David Woodley and split end Carlos Carson, who once caught 5 passes in the game against Rice, all for touchdowns. At 5'10", 170 pounds, Carson has the 3 essentials of a good receiver: good legs, good hands, and good eyes. What a magnificent catch here. There's another deadly combination at Tennessee, quarterback Jimmy Streeter and his big tight end, number 85, Reggie Harper. Harper has long, graceful strides like a racehorse, and this was one of 31 receptions that he made last year. Streeter will also throw into the flat to receivers out of his backfield like number 39, James Berry, a man with sprinter speed and an affinity for the long run. And speaking about long gainers, Tennessee fans certainly wouldn't mind seeing more plays like this in 79. A 73-yard touchdown pass, Streeter to wingback Phil Ingram against the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. This was the Volunteers' longest play of the '78 season. At Ole Miss, they return a second-year quarterback, John Forcade, who is affectionately known as the Cajun Rifle. He came from the Bayou country with a strong right arm that fires passes to receivers like Ken Toller, number 30. And on the screen pass, Forcade flips one to number 36, Fast Freddie Williams, the Rebels' top receiver in '78. A strong finish last year and a truly outstanding performance this spring are two good reasons why Ole Miss fans are high on Forcade and his teammates in '79. Auburn's blonde-haired quarterback, Charlie Troutman, looks like the kid next door. He enters his senior season knowing that he'll throw to a group of veteran receivers like number 85, Mark Robbins. One thing about Troutman is his mobility. He can throw on the run and throw with pinpoint accuracy to number 45, Rusty Bird, a senior from tiny Bay Minette, Alabama. The Auburn playbook also has a short sideline pattern. This one to big playman Byron Franklin, whose ballet-like moves oftentimes get him out of a jam. Mark Robbins must have wondered if catching a pass for a touchdown was worth all the punishment he took from his overjoyed teammates who could scarcely contain themselves after Mark scored. Back in a moment with the men who dish out the punishment, the men on defense. Jim Miller of Mississippi has led the SEC in punting for the past 2 years. He's a barefooted kicker and could very well be the best in the nation in '79. Another '79 SEC specialist is place kicker Rex Robinson of Georgia. Last year he made 15 out of 17 field goals. 4 of those won games for the Bulldogs, and naturally that brought quite a reaction from the fans. It's no secret that SEC fans do react, sometimes with a frenzy. They turned out in record numbers last year, reaching all-time highs in both total attendance and average per game. And some fans really take their SEC football seriously. To them, Saturday's heroes are defensive specialists like number 28, Don McNeil of Alabama, who makes this spectacular play. Who will ever forget his Sugar Bowl performance against Penn State? Here he saves a likely touchdown. And with the help of teammate Jim Bob Harris, number 9, McNeil did it once again. McNeil believes that no pass should ever be touched by a receiver. A theory also subscribed to by number 19, Scott Werner of Georgia. He had 4 interceptions last year, highlighted by this return of 45 yards against the Clemson Tigers. Werner has great broken field running ability, which makes him even more dangerous in another field. He's one of the top punt return specialists in the Southeastern Conference. Another punt return interception specialist, number 22, Chris Williams of LSU. He picked off 8 passes last year, tops in the SEC. Right behind Williams with 7 interceptions, number 14, Roland James of Tennessee, described by his coach Johnny Majors as the best he's ever seen. Auburn is the home of one of the most decorated defensive stars in football, number 31, linebacker Freddie Smith. He was honored as the SEC Defensive Player of the Year in both '76 and '77, but he slowed down a year ago because of knee surgery. Doctors say he should be totally sound in '79. At Florida, there's linebacker David Little, number 51, who last year had 4 interceptions and 4 fumble recoveries. There's another kind of defensive player who has earned the reputation of being a heavy hitter. Georgia has a couple like 19, Scott Werner, and defensive end Robert Goodwin, number 99. And Alabama, another member of the football famous Hanna family, number 74, David Hanna. When you talk about sacking quarterbacks, 47, Byron Braggs of Alabama is one of the best, 6'6", 260. LSU has 3 defensive stars who've earned their spurs. Number 86, defensive end John Adams. Number 94, Lyman White, just a sophomore. And the man who feels the best way to stop a ball carrier is to slice his legs out from underneath him, number 40, Marcus Quinn. Auburn also has 3 crunchers who can stifle a play. Number 31, Freddie Smith. Number 29, Cliff Toney. Finally, the giant, 267-pound Frank Warren, number 66. At Tennessee, 44, linebacker Craig Pookie. At defensive end, number 96, Steve Davis. Number 74, Leotis Burton, an impressive freshman in 78. And finally, number 30, Junior Reed, who stops the option play perfectly. At Mississippi, Mike Fountain operated with authority against the punt return. At Mississippi State, number 99, linebacker Johnny Cooks can be a one-man destroyer, a vital cog in the Bulldog defensive machine. Also counted on heavily is number 43, Rusty Martin, who simply thrives on contact. Anchoring the defense of Kentucky, all SEC nose guard Richard Jaffe, number 58. And at Vanderbilt, if number 17, Ronnie Myrick, doesn't do the job himself, he'll slow the ball carrier until help arrives. You'll seldom see better lateral pursuit from a defensive back than right here. Who else but number 17, Ronnie Myrick, with an assist from number 54, Kenny Cole. And then finally, the stopper of all stoppers, linebacker Scott Brantley of Florida. He's as tough as he looks. Nobody, absolutely nobody, hits any harder than Brantley anywhere in the country. Little wonder the Gators love him. Just watch this one. These defensive specialists are all a part of the colorful spectrum which comprises SEC football each weekend in the fall. There's much more to those football weekends than the action on the field because the SEC is a showcase of all the color of college football. The conference last year had 5 teams that finished with winning records. 3 teams went to bowls. And topping it all off, the Crimson Tide of Alabama were voted the national champions by the AP Poll of Sports Writers and the National Football Foundation and Hall of Fame. Back with a final word after this from General Motors Parts Division.
Tommy here is a big responsibility, so I take him to Mr. Goodwrench, too.
Mr. Goodwrench stands for your GM dealer's commitment to improving customer care at over 6,000 participating dealerships. And now General Motors dealers are offering both infant and child love seats.
Love seats were developed by GM safety engineers. They're strong and comfortable. Right, honey?
My seat's for Vico.
Keep that great GM feeling
With Mr. Goodwrench.
and genuine GM parts.
Who's the symbol of good customer care?
Mr. Goodwrench.
Who stands for your GM dealer's commitment to improving service at over 6,000 participating dealerships?
Mr. Goodwrench.
Whose face is seen nearly everywhere?
Mr. Goodwrench's.
Look for him. He wants to show you he cares about you and your GM car.
It's him, Mom.
Keep that great GM feeling
It's Mr. Goodwrench.
with genuine GM parts.
So that's a brief glimpse at what's ahead in the Southeastern Conference football race in 1979. It promises to be a very exciting year. This is Bill Fleming on behalf of General Motors Parts Division, thanking you very much for being with us. Hope you'll have an opportunity to see lots of SEC football this fall. The 1979 SEC Football Preview has been brought to you by General Motors Parts Division. We'd like to remind you to keep that great GM feeling with genuine GM parts.